Welcome to Focus Today. It's always a delight to have my buddy in the studio with me today. Bob Just is with us, and miss him being on a regular basis, but he is a candidate, so he can't be here on a regular basis. And I need to say this up front, that he is a candidate for Josephine County Commissioner, and any of his opponents are more than welcome to call us if they'd like to have some equal time. Other than that, he's not here as a candidate today. He's here as a buddy, a friend, and a commentator. But I have to tell you, you know, as frustrating as you are at times. No. But you know what's so interesting is you've hung in there being a Democrat. You know, with the idea that, you know, you needed to stand for traditional values within the Democratic Party, which I commend you for. I always have, you know. And I thought, well, how can you be a Democrat when all of your colleagues are such, you know, interesting people?
It's hard.
But now you're turning around and you're getting notable Republicans endorsing you.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Hannity calls me and says, I want to go on the record that I, Sean Hannity, am supporting Bob Just for Josephine County Commissioner. And I'm going, oh, okay, Sean. You know, he said, this is the only time I've ever endorsed a Democrat.
And of course, your son Jason and Representative Hicks, and now congressional candidate Art Robinson. So it is interesting, though, and considering the news, everything, I think it's a good time to be a conservative Democrat, even though there are probably not too many of us. But it is a good time because it's important for this administration, for what's happening on the national scene with the Democratic Party. It's time for them to get criticized by fellow Democrats. And it's good for Republicans to see that and say, oh, no, I guess I'm not crazy. There are even Democrats, like Joe Trippi came out last night about you know, the debate with Biden and said it was condescending and, you know, condescending. I mean, it's nice to hear a Democrat say that.
Well, I want to get into the debate from last night. I watched about 45 minutes of it, then I had to go to the banquet, to the pregnancy center banquet, and so I didn't get the rest of it until I got home, and I had to go online to watch the rest of it. And I sat there in complete shock, and I don't want to sound overreacting, but I never seen anything so disrespectful, condescending. I was shocked that the vice president would sit there and smirk and laugh and do all the hand gestures, and I'm thinking, hey, wait a minute, we're a nation at the most critical time in the history of this nation, and you're over there laughing at your opponent because his ideas don't match up with yours? I mean, it was an unbelievable thing to watch.
Well, at a certain point, it became clear that it was a political strategy, which just then makes it even worse, because not only is it rude and bullying, but it's not even honest. You know, it's all... And I think a lot of the analogies that were drawn was to Al Gore in the 2000 debate when he's kind of muscled up to Bush and tried to intimidate him physically. And remember, George Bush looked over his shoulder and said, you know, who are you? You know, kind of attitude. But I think that Chris Wallace said something that really caught me up on Fox News after the debate. He said, you know, I'm old enough. I've seen most debates since 1960, since the first televised debate between Kennedy and Nixon, which obviously he saw as a kid. And he said, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen decorum dropped so completely. I mean, it was abusive, bullying.
That's the right term. You know, I'm interested interesting that you would use that term, because I had Paul Coughlin on this week, yesterday.
Yeah, I heard part of that.
Because it was National Stop Bullying Day, and yet we watched the vice president get on and try to bully his opponent. Yeah,
he did.
It was an amazing thing to watch. I thought, wow, you know, and in another way, it was extremely sad that politics in this country was lowered to that.
Well, and I have to say, you know, this is a real, I think, significant turning point combined with the presidential debate last week, because one of the main things the Obama administration, including obviously his vice president, had going for him was likability. And between the two debates, you're looking at this and thinking, who are these people? I mean, who are they? And that must really hurt. Must hurt them with the women voters. And I've heard it said, and I believe it, that it's going to hurt them with moderates, with independent voters, because they're looking that they want to see decorum. The Middle West is not going to like that. The South is not going to like that.
You know, you're sitting there and you're realizing you're looking at two people, of which one of them is a heartbeat away from the presidency. And there sits the current vice president with this laughing, disrespectful, condescending, cavalier attitude.
Right.
I'm thinking, wait a minute, if he became president overnight, is that what you want running this thing?
Oh yeah, no, you know, and even laughing during the subject of Iran, which is, you know, the issues of nukes in Iran, the issue of Israel, the dangerous situation. You know, there's some people have said, you know, the 15th of October, which is coming right up, is a moonless night. And there's a theory out there that if Israel's going to strike, that's a good time for them to strike because of the election. Barack Obama, the Obama administration will have to respond, whereas if it was after the election, they may not respond. And this is just one theory, but the fact that that theory's out there tells you how sober this moment is. And it was good that Ryan pointed out the situation from Israel's perspective. How would you feel if, you know, your president couldn't get the time of day from the American president, but meanwhile he had time to appear on a morning talk show? Yeah. And meanwhile, Biden is laughing through all of this. Well, this is not a laughing matter.
I know. I couldn't. All right, so let's get into it a little bit on some of the subject.
All right.
Benghazi Gate. It seems to be imploding. It's not going away. It's getting bigger. How serious is this?
I think it's very serious. I think I'm sure you agree. I think that the big issue now is whether they can keep a smiley face on it before the election. And now, I'm not talking about with the informed people who are watching Dove TV and watching, you know, Fox News and, you know, paying attention to the issues. But I'm talking about the people who are not paying attention. The question is, will the Benghazi Gate rise to the level of national consciousness? It's getting there, but I think the race is now on for them to dissemble and cover up and, as I say, put a smiley face on it as much as they can until November 6th.
What possible smiley face can they put on it when we have a dead ambassador and 3 other Americans, and this is one of only 36 ambassadors in the history of the country that we've lost, and we've lost it in the middle of this race. And the lying and the cover-up that's going on is just, why isn't this front page scandal? Nobody died at Watergate.
Well, you know, yes, truly. You know, it's an interesting thing. Corruption has a way of being revealed, and
it's spiritual. I mean,
it's spiritual.
I mean, you don't break God's laws break you.
I was thinking of exactly that quote.
And you know, last night the scripture that kept running through my mind was "Pride proceedeth," and I'm watching this and I'm going, boy, this guy's arrogant and prideful and all this stuff. And I thought, you know, and I'm not trying to be super spiritual judgmental, but there was absolutely zero humility of Vice President Joe Biden in the middle of a discussion and topics that are so serious, and yet he trivialized them by sitting there laughing.
I know, really. You know, Congressman Ryan said something interesting about the unraveling. He used the word unraveling, unraveling of Obama's foreign policy. Well, and you ask about the moment, and this is really a significant moment in spiritual, absolutely. There may be more unraveling than Obama's foreign policy. For example, the clearer this egregious behavior gets, including a cover-up, okay, the more embarrassed the national media will become because they are the cover-up central.
Yeah.
Now, the average American, I don't think the average American realizes that in the 2008 election, Sean Hannity was right, the media died in the 2008 election. The average American doesn't realize that. They don't realize that, I'm talking about the average American, just paying, you know, a little bit of attention, enough to vote, that kind of thing. They don't realize that we had an election in 2008 and voted in a president who was not properly vetted by the national media, which is their #1 responsibility.
Right.
And now what's happening is they're trying to do it again, but it's getting harder and harder and harder. And now this breaks. So what is the national media going to do? You have now the State Department contradicting the White House. The White House is throwing the intelligence community under the bus. More and more is going to come out. The hearings the other day were you know,
unbelievable.
Only the beginning.
Yeah.
You have now a mom who lost her only son, who was on CNN saying, I can't get the truth out of anyone. Now, there's, what, 3 weeks to the election. This is going to be a fascinating spiritual moment. Is this country going to turn back to truth and stand on the rock of what is true, which points to the real rock,
right,
you know, Jesus Christ? But are they going to do that, or are they going to look the other way and fall into the, you know, the vain imaginings of their heart? I mean, fall into the lie. And it really is this moment. Are the American people going to finally see that the secular media, bias isn't even really the word. They have a complete,
they got an agenda,
perverse worldview.
Yeah.
And it's in support of the Obama administration.
And you ask a good question. Where's the media in this? Why is the media protecting this?
Yeah, and I think that what's going to happen with the media in the mainstream secular media that have picked a side decades ago and stepped way over a line in 2008 by not vetting a candidate at all who was totally unqualified, not to mention having substantial leftist connections that the media never told us about, except for venues like Fox News, etc. And so the question is, they've picked their guy, and now all of a sudden this Benghazi Gate thing happens, and the evidence is coming out, and so now their reputations are fully on the line because the American people are paying attention now. This is a teachable moment.
Yeah.
The psychology, what's interesting about a teachable moment is a really key thought, because the psychology of why they did the video cover-up, why did they do that? Which is an interesting question. And I think the reason they did it is that it was 9/11. Our total attention was to the tragedy of 9/11, the attack, the reality of it, the people jumping out the windows, reliving that, you know, seeing the grieving families, and then this attack comes. And guess what would have happened? It was a teachable moment. People would have said, oh my gosh, all these, you know, smiley face things the Obama administration has been saying about their policy in the Middle East and the Arab Spring and and all this stuff. It's not true. The terrorists are still there. They're still strong, and it's maybe...
Well, the testimonies before the Oversight Committee was unbelievable, where they requested for security. They didn't get it. They were the last flag flying. They had previous attacks. All of those things now, it's clear that the White House and the State Department story was bogus. Now, the question is, why did they lie? And it's possible, in my thinking, it's just possible that former ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, may be right. And that he's saying is that the leftists, especially President Obama and his ilk, believe that they actually believe that you can be friendly to an enemy and they won't hurt you back. In other words, it's an ideological argument more than it is a cover-up. And so in the meantime, the movie created the screen for them to hide behind. They thought that was the plausible thing.
Right.
And now they're getting caught. And it's such a mess. But what's on the line here now is the credibility of the press. Why is the press allowing this to happen? I mean, outside of Fox News, talk radio, and the blogs, why is the press still trying to protect this president when we have a dead ambassador?
Well, it's going to be an educational moment for people to watch the evening news. I even recommend it for people who don't normally watch the national ABC, NBC, CBS, etc. Because to watch them and what they go through to soft pedal this or cover it up, or maybe not. Maybe they will just say, you know what, this is too big, there are too many people paying attention, we can't cover this up.
All right, Hillary Clinton. She wants to be president in 2016, even though they deny it. You know, hey, let's just be real. She's going to run for president in 2016. Can she now, as Secretary of State, in this honor? If you were advising her, what would you tell her to do right now?
That's a great question. She's caught in the horns of a dilemma, that's for sure.
Well, her potential presidency is on the line now.
Really, it really is. I mean, was always planning to leave the Secretary of State and announced it a year ago at the end of this term. And here she is right at the end of the term, and all of this is breaking.
Does she throw the president? Well, does she throw the president under the bus? I mean, here's a theory. The theory is she goes through next Tuesday, which is the debate on foreign policy, and if the president can't defend what happened in Libya, at least in a plausible way, which I can't imagine how he can do that, she's got to separate herself from him real fast, and she's got to blame him for the message that went out there. She's got to put him in the driver's seat and separate herself. So does she throw him under the bus before the election?
I don't think so, because it's not how the left operates. The left is it's one nation under the Democratic Party. That's the way they think. That's the way they operate. I don't think she would ever be forgiven if she threw him under the bus. Her best hope is to have it blamed on intelligence and have the intelligence community, which the left hates anyway, be the bad guy, and then they'll try to defend themselves. The State Department is already backpedaling on this now, and so what she could do is she can hide out. I'm just saying, to answer your question, if she can hide out and have the attention thrown on the intelligence community, get past this election. If he's reelected, or if he's not reelected, she has 4 years to recover, for this to become a distant memory. And then she can do what she can to clean up. I don't see, if she were to do something dramatic, which might even be the honorable thing to do, and that is resign as Secretary of State and say, this is untenable, I'm protecting my department, or whatever, or criticizing Barack Obama, that might be the honorable thing to do, but it's just not the way the Democratic Party operates. Power and control are at the center of everything for them because, anyway, just
so they don't believe. What I'm hearing you say is that they really don't believe this is a problem.
No, I think they do believe it's a problem. I think the main strategy is going to try to dissemble and stall until the election, and hope that hope that Obama can get reelected.
I agree with that.
But the interesting thing connected to that is, what if Barack Obama does get reelected? What if the American public is not paying attention, and he wins by a narrow margin? They're stuck with an historic scandal. This is worse than Watergate. If it is what people think it is, meaning that they intentionally pretended it was the video in order to cover up the unraveling of their foreign policy, intentionally did that, and it starts to unfold, and that they wouldn't put security in the embassy, in the consulate in Benghazi because it would look bad. I'm telling you, he could get impeached.
I don't know, because what we talked about earlier was the secular press will come to his defense. If he wins, and if it's a narrow margin, then this press that's covering him up now will just stonewall around him to the point where he can't be penetrated.
I hope we don't see that. I hope we're on the edge of getting him out. I know you do too.
Well, here's what everybody say. Well, what do you think? What do you think? Da da da. And look, here's the problem. All of these issues, in my opinion, are extremely important. Every one of them, from the economy to foreign policy to Obamacare, every issue on the table is extremely important. But there's one thing here, to me, is the deciding factor, and that is, Obama's base is unemployed and has run out of unemployment. 39 million people are unemployed, and their unemployment's running out. And that, for the most part, that's his base. That's who voted for him last time. He loses, and I think he loses. Well, let me put it this way: I hope he loses lawyer-proof margin.
Yes, exactly.
You know,
scandal, fraud proof.
Yeah, he's got to be 5 points or more in his loss. But I still think he loses. I think he loses substantially because, not that I'm hopeful or wishful thinking, the pragmatics of it is that his base is unemployed with no hope of getting a job. You know.
Yeah, you know, there's one other larger element to this, which is something for us all to keep our eye on, and that is that the long view of the last 10 years of how the Democratic Party, my Democratic Party, lost the peace, is the way I put it. They lost the peace because starting in 2002, as we were in Afghanistan and started to head into the war in Iraq, and that George W. Bush made it clear that there was an overarching strategy in terms of pushing back against terror and giving the Middle East, giving the Muslim population a choice of freedom over, over terrorism. The Democratic Party started to undermine that with the peace movement in the summer of 2002, which Wall Street Journal reported on. Mm-hmm. They started to undermine it with Jimmy Carter writing a column in the New York Times in the fall of 2002, okay, so several months before the beginning of the Iraq War, speaking against the war. Then, of course, in the midst of the battle of Iraq, we had John Kerry, remember, calling for regime change of the American government. Mm-hmm. So they were already undermining the war. Leading up to, of course, the 2004 election, they continued to undermine the war with the peace movement and everything they did. And then most egregiously in 2006, Harry Reid, leading senator for the Democratic Party, said, "This war is lost." The Democratic Party has been undermining the war on terror almost from the very beginning, and the proof is there, and what it's resulted in is the 2006 election. We were fooled. We put the Democrats in the control of the House. Then the 2008 election, we got fooled. We put Barack Obama in, and now everything's unraveling, and I don't know how long it's going to take or how much blood and treasure we're going to have to expend to recover this, Perry. It's very sad for America.
If Romney gets in, his first 6 months, 8 months, maybe his first year is going to be really tough, because what he has to do to stop the bleeding is going to be unpopular, and it may even worsen some of the numbers for a while until it turns around and goes the other way.
Right.
You think he can handle it?
I think, and I know you agree, that if Romney Ryan wins, that ticket wins, there is going to be such a sigh of relief. There's going to be a burst of optimism despite the hard road we have, and you're absolutely right. But you know, there could be revival in this country, because we have just seen, we have just come as close as we've ever come to tyranny in this country.
Yeah.
And if we turn away from it, I think there's going to be a tremendous sense of hope.
Well said. Thank you, Bob. Good to see you, buddy.
Thank you.